She never wanted you to know about us. That's what the woman said when she called me, about the sister I was never told I had. No one mentioned Cora. Not at Walter's funeral. Not when the will was read. Not when the farmhouse was quietly signed over without my name. For years I showed up, brought groceries, paid the taxes when they forgot. I thought that was love. Turns out it was silence. Weaponized. And the day I found the photo taped to my windshield, everything began to unravel. If you've ever uncovered a truth your family hoped you'd never find, drop a comment number 1. And if you've never had to, drop a number 0. Because sometimes the quietest families carry the loudest secrets. They handed me the envelope like it was a birthday card, like they weren't about to ask me to pay for my own silence. The envelope sat between us, too casual in its floral print. I waited for a punchline, but none came. My mother poured more tea, a movement so practiced it was nearly elegant, as if she were performing at a dinner theater and not orchestrating a betrayal. Earlier that week, I'd found an old voicemail from Grandpa Walt, his voice crackly but warm. "Take care of that farmhouse someday, kiddo," he'd said. I smiled when I heard it. I didn't know I'd need a lawyer first. The dining room hadn't changed. Same heavy curtains, same wood-paneled walls. The ceramic turkey centerpiece sat proudly between a half-eaten roast chicken and a bowl of cranberry sauce nobody touched. I'd made that turkey in 5th grade, painting it in thick globs of acrylic until the colors ran together like oil and water. Lorraine still brought it out every November, like it proved something. It was November 18th, 5 days before Thanksgiving, and I hadn't been home in 4 years. The house felt colder than the season could justify. Dean slid the envelope closer to me. "It's just some numbers," he mumbled, "for transparency." I opened it. 4 typed pages. Bold headings, shared expenses, property maintenance, medical flights for Walter, Grady's college fund contribution. Total, $190,248.13. I laughed. I thought they were joking. They weren't. "You live there rent-free," Lorraine said, dabbing the corner of her mouth with a cloth napkin. "Utilities, food, Grandpa's prescriptions. These things add up." "Add up to $190,000? I asked. She gave a tight smile. "It's not personal, Marin. It's family. Dean wouldn't meet my eyes. Grady's still paying off loans. We thought this was fair." Fair! That word sat bitter on my tongue, like I hadn't given up weekends scrubbing Grandpa's floors, like I hadn't held his hand through morphine dreams while they booked vacations. I reached into my purse, found my car keys. "Is this about Grandpa's will?" Lorraine's smile didn't flinch, but her fingers tightened around her teacup. "It's about moving forward." I left the envelope on my plate, untouched dessert beside it, and walked out into the sharp November wind. Out in the car, something hard slid under me as I sat. I reached down and pulled out a thick manila envelope from the glove compartment. My name in Grandpa's looping cursive. I stared at it like it might explode. My fingers trembled as I opened the flap. Inside, the original will, dated 7 months ago. Walter J. Whitmore bequeaths his home and all associated assets to his granddaughter, Marin Lee Whitmore. No mention of Grady, not one. My breath caught. The tablecloth. I remembered the day I'd burned it, aged 9, trying to help Grandma light candles. Lorraine screamed. Grandpa had just chuckled, tousled my hair, told me some scars were just signs of trying. That tablecloth was still on the table tonight, the burn barely visible beneath the cranberry dish. What else had they hidden? The farmhouse wasn't just property. It was a map of my childhood. Scratches on the hallway wall where Grandpa measured our heights. A loose floorboard under the stair I used to hide things in. The attic where I'd found his wartime journals, tucked away in a suitcase with a faded photograph of a woman I never dared to ask about. Now they wanted to charge me for memories, invoice my grief. The house still smelled like the past. Cedar, tobacco, the cinnamon he used to sneak into coffee when Lorraine wasn't looking. In every room, some echo of him remained. They didn't want fairness. They wanted silence. I hadn't spoken at his funeral. I hadn't cried. But this was different. I looked back toward the house. The porch light had flicked off. The will says, Marin inherits the house and all assets tied to the land. There's no mention of Grady, not one. If I'd been raised anywhere else, I might have screamed. But in this house, rage is folded into silence, like butter into mashed potatoes. Back in my apartment the next morning, I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by paper, bank statements, legal folders, and a shoebox I hadn't opened since Walter died. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, and the hum of my laptop fan filled the quiet. My fingers trembled as I clicked through PDFs, but I kept my breathing steady. This wasn't panic. This was preparation. The will hadn't been filed, not legally, but the bank statements told a different story, and so did Harold from the clerk's office. I reached for my phone and dialed. St. Louis County Clerk, came a voice. Hi, this is Marin Whitmore. I'm calling about my grandfather's estate, Walter J. Whitmore. I think something's wrong. The voice transferred me twice before Harold came on. Gruff, slow-speaking Harold, who once danced with Grandma at a county fair. I remember Walter, he said. Always filed things himself. Said he didn't trust online portals. I asked him to check what had been filed under Walter's estate. There's a will, he said. Filed 3 months ago. 1 page. Notarized. Doesn't mention property. I froze. There should be another. One that names me. With the house, Harold hesitated. Let me poke around. I hung up and pulled the laptop closer. In one tab, the will Grandpa sent me. In another, family trust documents Lorraine once forwarded for tax season. The line items didn't match. Transfers totaling $75,000 to an account labeled Grady Education, dated 5 and 4 months before Walter passed. Grandpa didn't believe in lump sums. He once told me, if they can't explain where it's going, don't give it. Flashback came uninvited, sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of cocoa between us. He showed me his checkbook ledger, every entry color-coded. Truth's in the numbers, kiddo, he'd said. Ink doesn't lie. The memory unraveled further. One winter, the gutters had frozen, and he dragged me up a ladder to help. You don't learn by watching, he said, hammering at the ice. Later that night, he had me read aloud every line from the plumber's receipt, then asked, So what was unnecessary? I said, tubing. He smiled like I'd solved a riddle. Now the ink had been replaced by spreadsheets, but the truth still poked through. I opened a new tab and left a message for a probate attorney. My voice cracked, but I didn't apologize. Outside, someone walked their golden retriever. The neighbor's TV echoed through the walls, some sitcom laugh track at odds with my pulse. A garbage truck bellowed 2 blocks away. Above me, Mr. Jenkins coughed, as he always did after his morning cigar. The building was alive with other people's lives. Mine felt paused. I reached for the shoebox again. Beneath folders and Post-its was a folded envelope, one I didn't remember packing. Inside, a bundle of older receipts, handwritten in Walter's ink. He'd annotated them. Unapproved, ask Grady why, was scrawled next to a transfer receipt for a computer store. Another read, check again with taxman, Lorraine insisted. My breath caught. Grandpa had been tracking them too. Harold called back. I found 2 drafts, he said. One typed, unsigned, has your name and the house clause. The other is notarized, official, but vague. Do you know who submitted it? He didn't. Came by mail, no return address. After we hung up, I sat in silence. Just me, the blinking cursor, and a betrayal that now had paper trails. I went to the kitchen and poured fresh coffee into Grandpa's old mug. The chipped one with the tractor logo. I washed it every Sunday, even when he wasn't using it anymore. I set it on the windowsill, next to a little pewter goose he gave me when I graduated. Outside, a child biked past, streamers fluttering. That night, the air was thick with stillness. I watched headlights dance across my ceiling and thought about Grady. Where had the money gone? Did he know? Or worse, was he the architect? The phone rang. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. I picked up. A woman's voice, low and unsteady. They did this to my mother too. Click. Lorraine laid out the tea set like it was a peace offering, but I knew that pot never poured truth. The light through the front window had grown dim, drawing long shadows across the same dining room I'd known since childhood. The table still had the cream-colored cloth, ironed, starched, like a veil pulled over history. I sat where Walter used to, my back straight, my hands steady. In front of me, a packet of documents, clipped and annotated. The old wall clock ticked like a countdown. Lorraine's smile trembled. Tea, Marin? No, thank you, I said. This isn't a visit. Dean fidgeted beside her. He hadn't met my eyes since I walked in. His hands rested too neatly on his lap, like a student summoned to the principal's office. I slid the envelope across the table. What's this? Lorraine's voice was syrupy. Receipts, the will, the copy you didn't file, and the one you did. I kept my tone level. She opened it with deliberate slowness, scanning the pages like they might vanish if she blinked. This must be a misunderstanding. Dean shifted. Where did you get these? Where Grandpa left them, I said. With me. She blinked fast, her fingers tightening on the porcelain teacup. It clinked softly as she set it down. I remembered that sound, the same as the night Dad choked on a chicken bone, and Lorraine kept pouring sweet tea like it was medicine. The scent of lemon polish hung in the air, same as every Thanksgiving, though there was no turkey roasting, no laughter echoing off the walls. I remembered the last time we sat here on that holiday. Lorraine had insisted on reading some parable about family unity, while Dad drank too much red wine, and Walter just kept shaking his head, his smile fading with each toast. I tapped the laptop in front of me. Mr. Hendricks will be joining. Dean opened his mouth, but closed it again. The Zoom tone sounded, and there he was. Hendricks, with his bookshelf background and half-buttoned collar. Ah, Marin! Everyone's here? I nodded. Yes. Just to confirm, you received my email? Yes. I glanced at it. Strange, there were 2 wills? Lorraine looked stricken. Dean muttered, That wasn't supposed to. Hendricks went on. One notarized, filed. The other signed but unfiled, more detailed. I said nothing, just watched their faces. Lorraine leaned in. Mr. Hendricks, we were told that version wasn't valid. Oh? He squinted. It's signed, dated. If anything, the filed version looks lacking. Dean exhaled through his nose. I turned to him. You thought Grady needed it more? His mouth moved before words came. He had debts, tuition. He wasn't stable. So you made me less. Have you ever discovered that your place in the family was conditional? Something given only when convenient? If you've ever felt quietly erased, leave a comment number 7 below. Let's see what truths get uncovered next. That sentence sat between us like a verdict. Dean pushed back his chair and walked out. The screen door squeaked, then slammed. Lorraine sat frozen. Then she stood too, but before leaving, she stopped behind me. Her breath brushed my neck. "You always had a way of making us feel guilty," she whispered, "even when you smiled." The clock ticked louder now. Before I left, I crouched down, running my hand along the underside of the table. My fingers found it. My initials, carved clumsily when I was 10. I used a butter knife Walter gave me, swore me to secrecy like it was a sacred rite. The grooves were still there, shallow but defiant. I traced the M with my thumb. I had belonged here once. When I returned to my car, twilight had settled. I unlocked the door, slid into the seat, and noticed something odd on the windshield. An envelope. I stepped out and peeled it free. No name. Lorraine had watched me from the front door. She hadn't moved since I left the house. When I opened the envelope, her expression didn't change, but I saw her knuckles go white around the handle of her purse. Inside, a single photograph. A baby, me, wrapped in a yellow blanket, held by a woman I didn't recognize. I looked up, met her eyes through the glass. She turned away without a word. The photo trembled in my hands. Not rage, not fear. Just the hush after truth drops into a room. "Let's be civil," Lorraine said, setting down a tray of lemon bars like she was hosting a bridge club. Not a legal intervention. The wind cut across the porch like it had an agenda. Cold, unrelenting, sharp enough to slice through small talk. We sat around the outdoor table Walter had built from cedar, now faded gray with time. Lorraine had placed a checkered cloth over it, weighted by cider mugs and false smiles. The farmhouse behind us creaked softly, as if listening in. Grady arrived first. I hadn't told him, but someone had. He swaggered through the gate with a grin, hands in his coat pockets, nodding like he was walking into a poker game he planned to win. "Nice setup," he said. "Hope you brought receipts." I did. They were stacked neatly in front of me. Printouts, notarized copies, bank statements. The timeline I had spent 2 days stitching together was indisputable, just like the chill wrapping around my ankles. Sharon, the mediator, adjusted her scarf and introduced herself. "Thank you all for agreeing to meet," she said. "Let's try to stay solution-focused." Lorraine offered her a lemon bar. "Still warm," she said with too much brightness. Sharon declined. Dean sat hunched slightly forward, eyes fixed on a knot in the table. I noticed his wedding ring glinting, loose on his finger, as if it too had grown tired of this family. Hendricks joined on Zoom again, this time already flustered. His screen froze twice in the first minute. "Apologies," he muttered. "Hotel Wi-Fi." "I'll begin," I said. I laid out the dates. September 12th, first withdrawal to Grady's education account. October 4th, second transfer. October 28th, a filed version of the will with no mention of the farmhouse. "Walter died November 3rd, I said. "These weren't mistakes. They were maneuvers." Lorraine exhaled loudly. "We're not villains, Marin. This was a financial redistribution, a family matter." Grady laughed. "You never needed the house anyway. You left." Dean flinched. Sharon raised a hand. "Let's stay on topic. Can we confirm who submitted the notarized will?" Hendricks fumbled with some papers off screen. "It came through postal mail, no return address. In hindsight, we may have had a clerical oversight." "You think?" I muttered. Dean looked at his hands. It wasn't supposed to go this far? No, I said. It was supposed to go quietly. Sharon nodded slowly, absorbing. Inheritance challenges like this are more common now. Generational shifts. Values change. Lorraine scoffed. We taught our children legacy meant sacrifice. Dean spoke, almost a whisper. Walter taught that. You taught silence. Grady rolled his eyes. Can we wrap this up? That's when he said it, carelessly, arrogantly. I told you back in August this wouldn't hold up. Silence. Sharon looked up. August? You knew about the will in August? Grady blinked. That's prior to Walter's passing, I said. The wind knocked the chimes overhead. 3 sharp notes, then quiet. Sharon set down her pen. Given that disclosure, I'll be filing a conflict of interest report. This meeting is now adjourned. Everyone stood. Lorraine reached for the tray. No one touched the lemon bars. Grady muttered something and walked to his truck. Dean lingered. When the others were gone, he turned to me. His hands shook. There's more than money, Marin. There's something about your birth I never told you. I stared at him, unable to summon words. He pulled a photograph from his coat pocket. It was faded, creased at the edges. In it, Walter stood beside a younger woman I didn't recognize, cradling a baby wrapped in a blue knit blanket. That's you, Dean said, but not with your mother. I took the photo slowly, feeling the weight of it settle in my palm. Who is she? I asked. Dean didn't answer right away. I think it's time you knew the rest. Walter kept more than land. He kept secrets. The wind picked up again. The lemon bars trembled on the tray, but remained untouched. Sharon's notebook still lay on the table, forgotten. A scribble in the margin caught my eye. Family truths are colder than the wind. Dean turned to leave. You'll need to speak with Lorraine, he said. She knows more than I do. The porch creaked behind him. The wind chimes cried once more, soft, uncertain. I didn't move, not yet. She looked just like you, the voice said over the phone, and I didn't know whether to feel comforted or erased. The morning fog draped the farmhouse like a secret it didn't want to give up. I parked beside the rusted gate and stepped into the silence, boots crunching over gravel still damp from last night's mist. The house looked smaller now, as if memory had always made it taller. I let myself in with Walter's old key. I didn't head to the dining room. I climbed the stairs. The attic door groaned open. Cold air met my face, tinged with cedar and thyme. Dust motes floated like suspended thoughts. I flipped the bulb switch. Weak light pooled across the floor, illuminating the boxes Grandpa never let anyone touch. Behind the rocking horse was one marked Cora, a name I hadn't heard until yesterday, when that voice, tired, female, afraid, said it aloud like it had always belonged to me. The box held letters bundled with ribbon, yellowed envelopes, a Polaroid of 2 girls in matching overalls. One was unmistakably Lorraine, younger, freer. The other could have been me, if I'd been born 20 years earlier. The handwriting stopped me cold. Loopy rushed cursive across a page that began, Dearest Walter, she doesn't know she has a sister. I stood there, the wood creaking beneath me, my breath caught somewhere between memory and invention. A torn corner of a newspaper clipping slipped from one letter, something about a local custody dispute in 1984. Names blacked out. My knees weakened. Downstairs, I poured coffee into Walter's chipped mug, stuffed the letters into my satchel, and drove to the diner on the edge of town. Formica booths, a jukebox coughing out Patsy Cline. The smell of bacon grease hugging every surface. Nothing had changed. A girl around my age waved from the corner booth. Nora. Her hair was darker than mine, but her eyes, the shape, the space between them, felt like looking into a mirror through time. We sat across from each other, mugs between us like peace offerings. "She was my mother," she said. "Cora, Lorraine's sister. They stopped speaking when I was 3. "Why?" Nora shook her head. "It depends on who you ask. A man, a will, something unforgivable." I slid a photo across the table. "This you?" She nodded. "That was taken the summer before Walter changed the will, before it all went quiet." I asked how she found me. "Probate alert?" she said. "Your name popped up. I work in document recovery, part-time. Good with records, must be genetic." She pulled out a manila envelope. Inside, a signed will. Walter's, but not the version filed. This one bore a clause dividing the land between Lorraine and Cora. "He gave them both a legacy," she whispered. "Lorraine just pretended it never existed." I leaned back. The booth pressed into my spine. The jukebox changed songs, some forgotten country tune haunting the silence between us. "Why didn't your mom fight this?" Nora stirred her coffee slowly. "She was tired. Said some things you lose quietly, others you leave buried." Our waitress refilled the mugs. I watched her move, apron stained, wedding band worn thin. The kind of woman who knew every secret in this town but never said a word. "She said to never contact you," Nora added, "that you were better off not knowing. And what did you think?" "That she was wrong." I nodded, the words sitting heavy in my throat. "I think Walter knew. That's why he sent me the will himself. He wanted the story to find me eventually." "I think he hoped we'd find each other," she said. The diner's door chimed open, and 2 elderly women stepped in, greeting the waitress like old friends. Life. Undisturbed. Meanwhile, mine was rearranging itself by the second. I reached into my coat and pulled out the photograph again, the one of the baby wrapped in yellow, held by a stranger who now had a name. "We can prove it," I said, "that the land was meant to be shared, that they buried it." Nora looked out the window. "And then what?" I didn't hesitate. "What if we claimed it back?" I asked. "Together." Have you ever had to choose between staying quiet or finally standing up for yourself and someone else? If you know what that moment feels like, leave a comment number 9. Let's find out where that courage leads. She met my eyes steady and nodded, just once. The house felt emptier, yet more honest, like air had finally returned to rooms where only ritual had lived. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and soft. Frost rimmed the porch steps, and the windows fogged with each breath I exhaled. I didn't light the fireplace. I opened the kitchen windows instead. Let the truth stay. Let the lies go with the drafts. Nora was already up, wearing one of Walter's old flannel shirts and peeling apples like she'd always belonged here. We didn't speak much. Some mornings ask for silence. I laid out Grandpa's stuffing recipe. The index card still bore his handwriting, faded, smudged in places from years of gravy-stained fingers. Chestnuts, dried cranberries, sage, a touch of thyme. I followed it as closely as I could. Every chop felt like a prayer, every stir, a memory returning to its roots. The cream-colored tablecloth went on next, burn mark and all. Nora smoothed it with her palms like she was ironing out the past. She lit a candle in the center and placed a bowl of fresh rolls beside it. On the counter sat an envelope addressed to me. Dean's handwriting. I opened it with steady hands. "Marin." I watched this unfold and didn't speak. I thought silence was protection. I thought secrets would spare you pain. I was wrong. Cora was kind, wild, and young. Lorraine couldn't stand that. Walter tried to keep us together, but guilt divides quieter than hate. I let him down. I let you down. I can't undo what we buried. But I hope you'll let truth bloom in its place. Dad, no excuses, no blame shifting, just admission. I placed the letter next to the stuffing bowl. Legacy takes many forms. The house now bore both our names, mine and Nora's. The paperwork had come through 2 days ago. Official, binding, fair. We sat down at the table, just the two of us. Nora offered a toast, not from scripture, but from something Walter once scribbled in the margins of a seed catalog. To remember is to reclaim. We clinked cider mugs. There was no turkey, just stuffing, roasted carrots, Nora's green bean casserole, and a pear tart from the gas station bakery that we pretended was homemade. Jazz played from the old radio, scratchy saxophone curling under the hum of the oven. The house felt alive. After the meal, I walked out to the barn. Sunlight angled in through warped boards. I found the nail where Walter had hung his wedding photo. I added one beside it. Cora, holding baby Nora, standing in front of this same barn 30 years ago. The faces weren't smiling, just steady. That was enough. The wind moved through the rafters. Not cold, just present. As I stepped back toward the house, I noticed a new envelope sticking out from the mailbox. No return address, but the seal bore a logo, Missouri Intergenerational Land Trust. Inside was a letter. They'd reviewed the documents Walter filed years ago, land use clauses, oral histories, soil surveys. They wanted to designate the farmhouse as a heritage site, a place where memory could be lived in, not just archived. Before heading inside, I paused beneath the oak tree Walter planted the year I was born. The last few leaves let go. I brushed my hand along the railing he carved, with initials I hadn't seen in years. W+M, not for romance, but for legacy. Walter and Marin. He knew. I turned toward the house, our house, and saw Nora through the window, rearranging chairs for dessert. The smell of cinnamon drifted out. The roots held. So would we. Some mornings, this house still creaks like it's holding its breath. But I no longer flinch. I let the echoes pass. I've learned that the deepest wounds in a family aren't always loud. Sometimes they're paper-thin silences stretched over decades. What we choose to uncover doesn't always bring peace, but it brings truth. And in that truth, I found the shape of love. Not perfect, but honest. If this story stirred something in you, perhaps take a quiet moment to listen for what's unspoken in your own home. Thank you for listening. Until next time.